As promised, TSN's football insider David Naylor joins us. And Dave, we're going to jump right into it. Whether it be your expectations or what you're looking forward to the most, the final third of the CFL season kicks off here in Week 15. What are your expectations, or what are you looking forward to in this home stretch?
I'm really curious to see what the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are in the second half of the season, because this is the first year since 2019 that we haven't hit the midpoint with them having the best record and everybody in the world chasing them. And look, they've had a couple of off games, right? One against BC, one against Sask, and the Ottawa one is kind of almost an anomaly because the way it all exploded in the fourth quarter with the pick six and all that kind of stuff. But I'm really looking forward to that game on the 29th against Toronto, because I think everybody in Winnipeg's been hearing about the Argos, been hearing about Chad Kelly, and of course, they've been just knocking W's out week after week after week after week. So I want to see what the Bombers look like in the second half of the season, and everybody can see where it looks like we're headed for a Grey Cup rematch. I'm sure BC wants to have something to say about that, but right now there's two teams that are way ahead of everybody else, and I can't wait till they meet this season. And again, just curious what the Bombers are going to look like, as they are a little bit, I don't want to say, they're not off the grid, but they're not the team that everybody's chasing, and that's what kind of intrigues me.
Bombers at Hamilton on Saturday afternoon. How about those Elks, man? I think it's Canada's game of the week. Edmonton at Sask Friday night. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, look, Edmonton has become an interesting story because they're now competitive, and even when they haven't won. I mean, last week I was on the panel for last week. I can tell you there was zero anticipation of a comeback in that game among us sitting there watching that thing. I mean, it was. And also for us, it was the third of a game of a triple header. So we might have been a little impatient to get that one out of the way. But when you sit there for 10 and a half hours of football. But the point just is, it was like, okay, this game is a fait accompli. And I mean, there's a PI play there. There's a big busted coverage play there, and that's what opened the doors. But you can't take away the fact that the Edmonton Elks have become competitive. And this is one of the things, Rod, I'm going to say. I know the CFL salary operations cap gets, hammered by everybody, from coaches to fans to media and things. But I'll tell you, without that salary operations cap, I don't think Chris Jones would be coaching right now. And it forces teams to be more patient before they fire coaches. And I think that's for the league. I think generally there's too much of a hockey mentality about firing football coaches in the CFL. And, if it buys guys more time to turn things around, I mean, I said this when Chris Jones got to 0-9. It's like, it's like a golf game. You ever go to play golf and you shoot, 55 on the front nine and you just try and flush it, and you're like, I'm just going to treat this like all I'm playing is the back nine. The front nine didn't even happen. That's kind of what Chris Jones is playing. He's playing the back nine. And guess what? He's doing okay. So, if he has a winning record down the stretch, that opens the doors for the Elks to bring him back. And again, there's still a lot left on his contract. We believe it's structured in a way that whenever they let him go, if they did, they would only owe him 1 year. That's the way the termination language is in that contract, a very unique deal. Which is why you can have sort of a 4-year deal, but not have the team on the hook for the entirety of it. There's been a lot of debate and conjecture and, sort of speculation about what actually was in his contract, but that's what it is. So, I think the Elks are interesting. And look, Trey Ford is not Nathan Rourke, because he hasn't played near as much football as Nathan Rourke did, right? Nathan Rourke played 3 years as a starter at a Division I school, went to 3 consecutive bowl games, played double-digit games at the Division I level for 3 years in a row. Trey Ford played 7 college football games his last 2 seasons at U Sport. And he started now, a half dozen games in the CFL? So he's not Nathan Rourke, but the intriguing thing about the lack of football he's played is that we can see his development happening before our eyes, and it's going to continue. And because he's played so little football over that time, it's quite possible he may have quite a high side by the time we get a couple of years into his career.
Well, I'll tell you what. Jones not being fired and Craig Dickinson, that's a byproduct, a benefit of a byproduct of that cap, which was put in, which I don't like. If they'd put a cap on TSN talent, and let's be honest, you would be the Joe Burrow of that, I don't think you'd like it very much.
No, I recognize, and there are people that point out that say that, the coaches really didn't have a voice in this. It kind of came from the league. But I also understand that we have a league that is economically vulnerable. And what the reason they did it was, and I've had people say this to me, that for all the things the coach's cap doesn't do, it does do the one thing it was designed to do, and that is keep teams from overspending on coaches, whether that's the salaries or the numbers of coaches, those kinds of things. And ultimately, it was a category that was growing expense-wise, outpacing other expenses and outpacing revenues. That's why they wanted to put a lid on it. But I know why the coaches hate it. I'm just pointing out that for coaches, there is one sort of silver lining in this thing, is it probably postpones the date at which a team decides it's going to fire a coach. It makes them be more patient.
Gotcha. Hey, you mentioned Nathan Rourke. I saw his little big brother here Saturday night at FAU. He's a stud. Your thoughts?
He is a stud. Yeah, it's funny. I've been down to see him twice at Ohio. The first time was last October, and when I went out to see him, he walked out, and I said to him, "How tall are you?" He said, "I'm 6'5". I said, "When did that happen?" He said, "I had a 2-inch growth spurt after I got to college." I was like, "Well, isn't that nice?" And of course, it's the same coaches that coach Nathan that are coaching Kurtis. So they know the comparables. They know, and they say Kurtis Rourke is a better passer at this stage of his college career than Nathan Rourke was. Nathan Rourke was a better runner and guy who could throw on the run and make plays happen. He became less of that guy in the CFL. In the pros, Nathan Rourke left a lot of his game behind in college because he had to evolve, and that's part of what he did. But Kurtis Rourke, because of his size, because of his throwing ability, he's more on the NFL's radar, I believe, than Nathan was, just because of the style of game and having sort of the NFL prototype body. So I was kind of gutted when I saw him get hurt in that first game against San Diego State. I'd just been with him about 10 days earlier down in Ohio, we did a session on him for a segment of TSN, and great to see him back playing. I got, just as likable a kid as his brother is. And it's very, very exciting. I mean, I'm trying to think if Kurtis Rourke makes it to the National Football League, I'm pretty certain. Well, I can say with almost no doubt, that's the first guy who played high school at the Canadian level, didn't play another form of football to make it to the NFL. Now, Jesse Palmer's a bit of an asterisk because Jesse Palmer played high school football in Canada, didn't play high school football in the U.S., but he was primarily a community club football player. He played with a team in Ottawa called Myers Riders, which was a very competitive team. He didn't need high school football because he was so invested in a very strong community program. But I guess, looking at guys who would play quarterback as Canadians in the NFL without going to a U.S. high school, it'd be Jesse Palmer and Kurtis Rourke, who were right from Oakville to Ohio, and is in some ways in some categories exceeded what his brother did.
Yeah, well, I don't know Nathan Rourke at all, and just watching Kurtis Rourke, the thing for me, Dave, is the demeanor. Ice water in his veins. His team was down, and they let him on a comeback. There was no panic, and that's a supposedly good FAU team under Tom Herman that they beat in their house on a comeback. It was fun to watch. Dave, thank you so much, man. Keep up the great work. We're watching all the games. Thanks for the time today.
Hey, thanks so much, Rod. Good to catch up with you.
TSN's Dave Naylor.